Have you ever thought about who takes care of the most vulnerable population of people in our society? The ones who can't always speak up for themselves? Developmentally disabled individuals on a daily basis receive care, support, and the life that they deserve thanks to direct support professionals. We're here to reveal the truth about them. They are important. They are heroes. Welcome to the Transforming Care podcast, a podcast dedicated to direct support professionals. I'm Eric Sullivan. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Soter.ai.
I'm Marina Sullivan. I'm a co-founder and COO of Soter.ai. Together, we've been solving the recruiting problem in the developmental disability industry for almost 3 years. We've had our ups and downs. We've gathered a lot of insight. We have a huge team of data analysts working on solving just one problem, that is staffing in the developmental disability industry.
This podcast is going to be focused on the issues and the solutions in recruiting direct support professionals.
Today we will be talking about direct support professionals, about the myths of what this role is, about the expectations for the role, about the problems that a lot of families with individuals with developmental disabilities face. We want to make sure that people know that becoming a direct support professional is a very honorable job. In order to introduce Soter to our listeners, I think we need to tell them a little bit about how Soter was built, how we started the company, what was the original problem that we were trying to solve.
The way that Soter was born in the first place was actually my company's and my background was originally in data, aggregating data on people. And I was in an entrepreneurial group. And one of my friends in that entrepreneurial group owned an agency that basically staffs people to help people with developmental disabilities with their daily activities. And he brought up to me this idea of there being a workforce crisis, and they had significant staffing issues at this agency. And, you know, he asked me, is this a problem that you can solve by finding data on people that could serve in this position, be direct support professionals? And, you know, I was honest with him. I said, I don't know if we can solve that problem, but we can sure give it a shot. And if we do that, then, you know, we might have a company together and we can give it a go, trying to solve this problem as a focus of the company. And so we started working with them, and a few months in, they were actually fully staffed. We were able to utilize data aggregation, targeted messaging, making sure that we were delivering the right message in front of the right person at the right time in order to staff up that agency. It's an extremely large agency. It's probably been about 3 years since we started working with them. We still work with them. And I think that they went from somewhere around 70 million in revenue to 100 million in revenue since then. But even more importantly than the revenue growth is the fact that they're serving large populations of people. That growth is in direct correlation to the amount of people that they're able to serve. I also just want to go back to why it is that this mission is so important to me. I really resonate with the mission of this company, and there's a reason why I leaned into it. Growing up, I was really good at some things and I was really bad at some things. And what that meant was I was in courses in school that were for advanced students, and I was also in remedial courses. And I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, where the special education program isn't necessarily that great and that developed. And so what that meant was a kid like me that had ADHD and that also was dyslexic was in a classroom half of his time with people that had that were in Mensa, and then half of the time with people that had Down syndrome, autism. And what that meant is I met a lot of people that were amazing.
I like the word that you like to use to describe people with intellectual disabilities, that they're geniuses in love or geniuses of love.
what I would say is every single person has a superpower. Everyone is a genius at something. And so one of the things that I found is when I was a kid was, some folks with Down syndrome are a genius at love. Some people with autism can memorize every single statistic on a baseball card. And so what that means is that people are superheroes, right? Everyone is superhero. And everyone deserves having people that can help them achieve their greatest potential, their greatest capacity. So in a lot of cases, actually, direct support professionals, people interchange this word caregiver, and you'll see it on our website for marketing purposes, but it's just not accurate. The word caregiver isn't accurate. It is in some cases. In some cases, people do need help with daily activities, toileting, so on and so forth. And that makes a lot of sense. But also, people need a coach. Some people need a mentor. Some people need a friend. Some people need a companion. And so every single person with IDD in this country has differing needs, right?
Right. And I do want to take a few moments to talk about what a direct support professional is. As Eric mentioned, you will see a lot of alternatives, a lot of variations of the word. Some say caretaker, some say caregiver, mentor. We use the word friend. It's a friend and a supporter to someone with just a little bit more needs. And it can be different requirements. Sometimes a family needs someone who can teach cooking. Sometimes a family needs someone who can share their hobbies, share their interests.
Sometimes it's a companion to go to the gym with, to play basketball with. Sometimes it's someone that will help them grow in their ability to do the art that they're extremely talented at, right? Sometimes it's going to the mall to walk every single day in the middle of the winter. But at the end of the day, the family's looking for someone that has an understanding of utilizing certain communication styles, understanding people's personal preferences, understanding their individual goals. And so I think what we have to think about this as, and this opportunity as, is an opportunity for the individual with IDD to grow and for someone to facilitate that. But one thing that I want to say to the people that are thinking about becoming DSPs is, I don't think that you even understand how much you can grow, how much you can get from this relationship, and how it's going to help you develop in your career as a person, as an individual, and carry that forward to whatever it is that are your personal inspirations.
So the role actually gives you an opportunity to create a very meaningful, deep connection with an individual you support. And I think it's the most amazing thing that you can get at work, right? We do know that people have growth needs, people have financial needs, but this, personal connection need is so high, especially nowadays. Everyone is lonely, and I think this job can give you so much love, so much support. Not you don't just give support, you receive support. We talk to so many DSPs. It's just fascinating to listen to their stories, how they sometimes become a family member. They become someone who an individual with IDD rely on in situations when they can't talk to their parents, in different relationship situations. So you become the best friend, and it's just wonderful, something we don't usually get at a job. I do want to say about the requirements for the position. Basic requirement is to have a high school diploma or equivalent. Sometimes depends on different needs. Families are seeking for someone with a higher education, but it's not the majority of cases. Another requirement is a driver's license. Funny enough, not in New York City, not in Chicago, but in majority of the US cities, we do need someone who can drive, has a clear driver's license, sometimes has a vehicle to drive yourself from to work. That would be it for the majority of cases. The most common requirement we do hear from agencies and families is the energy. Everyone is looking for someone compassionate, someone very passionate about care, someone very pure and happy. Because you come to a place where you want to share your experiences, you want to share your knowledge, and I think you need to come from a place of abundance. So the energy is a very important thing, is a very important requirement when it comes to this position.
Marina, can you explain the different types of positions that DSPs are in? Because DSP is kind of like this all-encompassing category, but categorically there are a lot of different types of positions that you can have as a DSP and different types of jobs that you can have. And so can you explain those different positions?
So basically, DSPs can be hired by an agency or directly by a family. There are different positions, and positions vary based on the needs. So there are day services. These are on-site jobs where usually a DSP has 3, 4, 5 different individuals they support, and it's usually breaking down by different classes. You can have a art class, you can lead a math class, you can help with finances. And it's such an interesting environment. It looks like a school. I love school. So I love visiting day services, and the environment is so friendly. You go for walks, you go to theaters, you can just have a meaningful conversation. There are cinema classes. DSPs who work at day services, they usually have a more regular shift from, let's say, 8 to 4, from 9 to 5, 8 to 3. There are residential group homes. It's when you live in a group home setting, and the shifts can vary. There are overnight shifts, there are day shifts, morning shifts, evening shifts. There are also community habilitations where you, together with an individual with IDD, go to a community setting and help them with developing social skills. And we've seen the DSPs with individuals they support in social environments, and it's such an interesting dynamic. One of the agencies we support, EFR, they had their annual gathering.
Oh, it's the best.
And looking at everyone dancing, playing bingo. It was my first time playing bingo. It was so much fun. And it's just the dynamic between people is incredible.
A professional job doesn't have to be sitting in front of a computer, looking at spreadsheets, taking calls. It doesn't have to be working at a drive-through. It doesn't have to be working at a bookstore. It can be taking field trips, right? Connecting with another person, building a relationship with someone, and taking field trips to do things that matter to that individual.
Why don't we talk about the challenges that developmental disability recruiting faces? Is there anything that Soter.ai achieved in this space?
We've achieved a lot, but we've only begun at this point in time because there's so much for us to solve, and there's so much of the space that needs to adopt what it is that we have to offer. But we're in New York State, and New York State has about 140,000 people with IDD throughout the entire state. And there are 110,000 DSPs, and that all sounds extremely good until you start looking at the numbers a little bit further. And so 40% of DSPs work part-time. Turnover rates are sky high, right? So of all of those people, 66% of them turn over every single year. And so what that means is that if an individual with IDD gets used to having someone in a DSP position, it's extremely likely that within a year, that they are going to lose the person that's serving in that position with them. And so what we've done is we've decreased the turnover rate by 10%. But even more importantly, what we've done is we have streamlined the recruiting process. And so how is it that you get the right people into a funnel to start interviewing for these positions? And what we've been able to do is significantly increase the speed at which those people end up in interviews so that they're not lost to other jobs, so that they don't go work at the bookstore, so that they don't go work at Arby's. And so typically it takes an agency somewhere between 3 weeks and a month and a half just to get someone to an interview. And so the chances of that individual not finding another job are extremely slim. And more than that, the really good people that we actually want serving in the position, they're gone. They're gone. What we've been able to do is decrease that time through the use of technology and making sure that we streamline the entire process up to the point of interview to between 6 and 9 minutes. And so what we're talking about is serving someone the right ad at the right time, them clicking on that, and them self-selecting into an interview and then being educated on what it means to be a DSP up to the interview. And so the person's showing up educated at the interview on what it is that they've applied for and ready, to be recruited.
I think if we take a step back and talk about the first agency we started serving, the original problem that we thought we were facing is the number of candidates that the agency is receiving. So the ask was to find more people who are interested in being hired as a DSP. As we started working on this problem and started solving it quite quickly, turned out the problem is not to find the right candidates. And actually, every time we have a new client, every time we have a new agency, the majority of agencies are saying that we do have a lot of candidates, we don't need more. The problem is they don't stick around. The problem is they ghost us. They don't show up for the interviews. So in order to figure out what the real problem is, we broke down the full process into steps. We looked at what the recruiting process at the agency is and what the experience of a candidate is. As we were creating this kind of maps of journeys, we realized that actually, as you mentioned, it takes up to 3 weeks for a recruiter to follow up, sometimes with an applicant. And within this time, they get another offer, they get another job because everyone needs to pay their bills. The speed of life is very high. So what we started doing, first of all, we decided how we can decrease the time for the recruiters to follow up with candidates. And of course, we understand their position. They have a lot of candidates. Indeed is sending a lot of candidates who apply for all the available jobs. They can't just follow up within 5 minutes as we wanted them to. So our goal was to increase the quality of the candidates that are going through our funnel so that the recruiters receive only the candidates that meet their criteria, right?
Yeah, and I want to go deeper on that to make sure that we really emphasize it, is having a lot of candidates is not necessarily a good thing, because what it does is it drowns the recruiter at the DD agency. It drowns the family in all of this noise. There's a ton of noise in getting all of these applications, and then you have to look through these applications, qualify these applications. What we've done is we've used algorithms in order to make sure that we're looking at the right candidates and that we're only delivering the right candidates. And so we created what we call a fit score internally at Soter. And the fit score is just basically an algorithm that says this person is this percentage of a good fit for this specific position. And that tells us whether or not we should forward that person on to be considered for this specific case that we're talking about, right?
A piece of advice to all the candidates who are applying with Soter, write as much as you can about you, about your hobbies and interests, because the way our algorithm works is that we match keywords from your application with the requirements we receive from a family or an agency. So we solve the portion in the recruiting departments of agencies, right? We now schedule interviews with recruiters. We make sure the candidates are engaged, are followed up, and they know about the position, they are informed about the position. Then we looked at where can we find right people. So we are utilizing different marketing channels. We are utilizing data analytics to find candidates that are a right fit for the position. Since we gave a general description of the position, should we talk about the challenges and why there is such a shortage of DSPs?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why there's such a shortage of DSPs. The one that we hear a lot from agencies, whenever you talk to an agency, the biggest thing that everyone talks about is pay band. Pay band is this huge problem. And it is. Listen, like, people are being underpaid to do a job that's one of the most important jobs in our society, taking care of people. That's a tendency that we have to overcome in our society, is that right now I think that we undervalue a lot of positions that are important, and this is one of them. And there are a lot of other problems, though. What are we communicating to candidates? How is it that we're positioning this position? Are we selling this position well and being truthful about what the position is and what a great opportunity it is? And I think that this is all something that lacks in the industry. And there's been this, because of a significant amount of failure in the recruiting divisions of DD agencies and families, and the amount of turnover and how big this crisis has become, I think that it's killed a little bit of the spirit, and we need to gain a movement back where people are passionate again about filling these positions, recruiting the right people to these positions, and where the recruiting departments don't feel like they're being beat down through failure continually. And so it's our job to alleviate this feeling of being beaten down as a recruiting division, as a family, and to help them gain momentum toward recruiting the right person. And so that's why we've developed a solution that solves the problem on average within 2 weeks. And that's a significant change in, our velocity of getting to a hire for a specific position, for a family, for an agency, is so much faster. The velocity is so much higher. And there's so much more joy that we see in the agencies and the families' lives because of the problem that we're helping them solve. And so I want to make sure that we as a company are creating more joy for families, agencies, people with IDD, and the DSPs alike.
Yeah, I do want to say that a pay band has been a big problem in hiring and finding the right people for the position. And it's just, I do want to say that expectations sometimes are not matching the pay band at all. I do know that a lot of states are putting effort into increasing the pay band for the increasing salaries for DSPs. New York State has increased salaries for different positions like day services, and hopefully that will continue across the US. The expectations of agents sometimes are hard to meet, though. And we obviously at Soter, we're trying to do as much as we can to find your perfect fit. But we do need to understand that sometimes it's not about finding the right candidate. It's maybe just 70% of it, but 30%, I would actually break it down into 50-50. 50% is to find a candidate, find the right candidate that you will recruit. Another 50% is actually a healthy work environment. For supervising, it's answering questions, making sure that candidates understand that what the process at the agency is. And we did have a lot of problems. Unfortunately, we can't fix everything with just one recruiting solutions. And we actually go beyond that. Soter goes beyond just being a technology company. We do provide consulting for agencies because as we're working with candidates and the processes in the industry, we see that sometimes it's just honestly ridiculous how long it takes to follow up with a candidate that a family has already approved. The application has been submitted, and then it takes 30 days for an agency to follow up with a person. I do want to say that people in the industry are so amazing, and we see people and we see candidates just waiting these 30 days to be hired. And we do need to decrease cases like that. That's why we are focusing on not just solving the finding problem, but also the hiring problem, the process that goes beyond just finding the right candidate. That was one of the interesting cases we had with the agency in North Dakota. The unemployment rate in their location, it was Dickinson as far as I remember, was very low, which meant that it was very hard to find people in their location. So actually it was the agency's idea, and we helped them with making it live. We presented the agency at a job fair.
Well, we created partnership programs along with the agency and other companies in order to encourage people in places with higher unemployment rates to relocate to the state of North Dakota. And so in North Dakota, there were a lot of blue collar jobs for one family member, and then there were needs for there to be DSPs for another family member in the family. And so it was, how is it that we pair a construction company and the agency as so that they can have a combined income when they relocate to a place that has a lower cost of living, that has a lot of opportunity for them, and they have two jobs that they can walk into together on day one and be able to support their family extremely well. And so that was the entire concept that was put together for that agency. And so that's another thing. I mean, we aren't just a technology company. We do have people in the background looking at the strategy, the tactics, what it is that's actually going to work, whether or not we need to be marketing to people in laundromats, or if we need to be marketing to people in libraries. I was going to say bookstores, but libraries is the right terminology. And so, you know, we are in each case putting the right ad in front of the right person at the right time in order to get the right people in the top of the funnel. But then we're using our algorithmic matchmaking in order to make sure that we distill down to the right people to be having that interview, and that we remove all of the noise so that the recruiters aren't recruiting people that aren't the right fit for the company, or the families aren't recruiting the people that are not the right fit for the family.
If you're a developmental disability agency in a location with a very low unemployment rate, here's a hack for you. Try to create a partnership with any other company employer in the location. Let's say it's a construction company. Look at the schools that you have, look at the kindergartens that you have. When you create an offer to a candidate from a different state, they want to look at everything, because if you're relocating their family, they would want to know where their spouse can work, where their kid could go to school. Mm-hmm. An example with the example that we presented, in their case, the schools were not great, but the university was good. So we actually were looking for people with kids that are older than high school age. You can do it with our help or without our help. Look at the partnerships you can create in the location and other important infrastructure like hospitals, schools, so that you can compile a case and create an offer for a candidate in a different location.
Yeah, and just one more thing here. We just did a big report on centralization of data in the state of New York because we have a lot of clients in the state of New York, and we have a significant focus there. And we're also doing a lot of research, data analysis on what is the actual problem that exists and how is it that we could solve these problems at kind of like a macro scale. And the truth is, the whole industry is fragmented. People aren't sharing information, agencies aren't sharing information among each other. There is competition among agencies. All of this makes sense. I mean, there are a lot of agencies in each state servicing individuals with IDD. There is competition. I do think that competition is healthy, but also there is a lot of waste. And that's just because there is not a centralized database, a centralized system that is making sure that the right candidates are getting to the right agency, getting to the right family, and making this process efficient, except for the people and the agencies that are working with us. And we do have a centralized system, the largest database in the world of direct support professionals or people applying as direct support professionals. And we do have a matchmaking algorithm that helps us find the right candidate for the right person. And so there's a lot of efficiency that can be created through the sharing of information and working with us. Having the law of large numbers is driving a lot of these results, and our agencies are seeing really significant changes in their recruitment numbers as they onboard and work with us. And so Marina's absolutely correct in that, yeah, we've built software, technology, matchmaking algorithms. We've streamlined the process with technology, but we also do have a team of data analysts sifting through, looking at this data, creating reports, communicating with the states, having conversations about what it is that can actually change this problem in the long term, and lobbying on behalf of our clients so that they can increase the amount of referrals that they're given. And at the end of the day, what we all know is that for an agency, the lifeblood of an agency, every agency has revenue. Some agencies that are nonprofits might have donations as well, but every agency has revenue. And the lifeblood of that revenue and the growth of the organization is a matchmaking process. On one side of that matchmaking process, we have candidates and to become DSPs. On the other side of that matchmaking process, ultimately, there's a family with some sort of a need. And the agencies sometimes have the family that meets that has the need of the individual that's the potential DSP, but not in every case does a family that they already have in their inventory have the need of having this specific DSP. And so we're also having conversations with officials, the states, and helping our agencies have conversations with the officials at their states in order to increase the amount of referrals that they're getting based on the inventory of DSPs that we're creating also. So there isn't significant waste of all of those recruits that don't have a match on the other side in their list of families that they already have. And so how is it that we share information on the candidates with the state so that the agency can receive more referrals and so that this is a lot more efficient?
And we are very open to having a conversation with state authorities. We are in New York, and I know New York is one of the most progressive state in the developmental disability industry. The support that the state is providing is exceptional.
This crisis is extremely serious. There are a lot of people going without support here in the US. So we're actually kind of talking about nationwide a problem that is, well, we don't know a real number because the data isn't clear and there are a lot of varying sources, and we've been trying to compile and accumulate our own data on this. It's just hard because people aren't sharing information, but between 20 and 40% of individuals with IDD don't have a caregiver right now here in the United States. They don't have a DSP. They don't have a direct support professional. And so I think it's quite obvious that this is a very serious problem. And the central focal point of what it is that we're trying to achieve is to move that number from that 20 to 40% to under 10% nationwide. So at Soter, that's our mission. That's our goal. That's what we're up to. That's what drives us every single day. It's kind of like our rally cry when we bang the drums, to get everyone pumped up at Soter. This is what we're talking about: is how is it that we can change the world through making sure that 90% or more of people with IDD have the companion that they need in order to live the most fulfilled life possible. So, question for you, Marina. How do you feel now that we've completed our first podcast episode?
Well, I was a bit nervous at the beginning. I think we had these conversations a lot at the conferences and internally. So, it's easy to talk about something that and you're not making up. So that's why I think it was kind of a comfortable feeling for me. For any agency or family who is listening to this podcast, if you do want to talk about the staffing needs, we are open to a conversation. We have a free consultation offered, and we are launching a platform that is going to be live next month, right?
Yeah. We have a product that we've created. It is a software product that helps with recruiting DSPs, and we're bringing that directly to the agencies and the families. We've been more of a service company with our software operating in the background, but we're trying to democratize this quite a bit more and to provide a software product that can be utilized by our clients.
And we've been asked a lot if we can help with the nursing staffing, with elderly care staffing, but we are solely focused right now on solving the issues with the developmental disability industry. It was such an interesting conversation in our first episode of Transforming Care podcast. There is so much we can talk about, and we're excited to talking about.
Well, I think that it was a very interesting experience, first time us doing a podcast. What I want to say is the purpose of this podcast, even though we literally have a light shining on us right now, what we're trying to do is shine a light on